Today's story of the call of the first disciples will make you appreciate the uniqueness of St. Luke as a storyteller. He is actually expanding a story that he borrowed from St. Mark. But first, let us see how St. Mark has told the story himself. Mark has a much simpler version of this narration of the first encounter in chapter 1, verses 16 to 20 of his gospel. He simply tells us how one day Jesus is passing by the Sea of Galilee and he sees Simon and his brother Andrew, as well as James and his brother John, washing their nets after a night of fishing. He invites them to come along. Hindi kayo, sama kayo. And they leave their boats and their nets, and they follow him. End of the story. Wait, it's not really the end of the story. Saan sila pupunta? Where is he leading them to anyway? You will know in the verse that follows, in verse 21, he is on his way to the synagogue of Capernaum, where he seems to have been invited to preach on the Sabbath day. Remember, we have several gospel texts where Jesus is actually preaching in a synagogue, meaning he's probably invited to preach. He is invited to preach on a Sabbath day. Wait a minute. Simon and his companions are working? They are fishing on a Sabbath day? Yes, that's the point. Isn't that supposed to be against the law? Yes, precisely. It means that these fishermen from Capernaum, who are about to be counted among the first disciples of Jesus, were not the religious type. They were not the type who strictly observed the Sabbath regulations or went to the synagogue regularly. Siguro kung Katoliko sila, they would not be regular church goers, or what we might call the unchurched Catholics. On the other hand, now, St. Luke gives us the circumstances by providing some important details about that first encounter. They have just come home with empty boats because wala silang nahuli. They had caught nothing after a whole night of fishing. Meron daw crowd by the lakeshore, and I suspect that the crowd that was there consisted of fish vendors who had waited for the fishermen to deliver a fresh catch of fish for the day. But Luke is adding humor to his description of the situation. Instead of Jesus inviting them to listen to his preaching in the synagogue, he turns the lakeshore into a synagogue and Simon's boat into a pulpit, instead of Jesus bringing these men to the Sabbath service in the synagogue. After all, they should not be working. He conducts the Sabbath service right there at the lakeshore. You see, palagay ko dito galing ni Pope Francis yung kanyang favorite idea of going out to the margins. The crowd should be pressing in on Simon and his companions by now kung may nahuli sila. If only they had succeeded in delivering a fresh catch, abay pinagkakaguluhan na sila ng mga fish vendors. But instead, the attention of the vendors is now focused on Jesus. Now nakikipag-gitgitan sila. They're pressing in, not for fish, but for the Word of God. which they wanted to hear from the mouth of Jesus. And Jesus will preach to them, of all places, from the empty boat of Simon. I imagine the conversation that preceded all of this. Alangan namang basta na lang siya uupo dun sa bangka na hindi muna nakikiusap. And take note, Jesus is meeting these guys for the first time. And he's asking for a little favor. Namely, that he be allowed to use Simon's boat. Pwede daw ba siyang maupo doon? What for? He was going to use it as a pulpit, as a sound box. Wala pa naman kasing mga amplifier at sound system noon. The boat was the sound system. And the lakeshore was some kind of an amphitheater where the acoustics was perfect. If the boat was not useful for catching fish, well, Jesus could at least make it useful for a different kind of fishing. You know, in English, we would call this adding insult to injury. Let me explain a bit. Luke has given you enough to make your imagination start working. Imagine Jesus. Ngayon, nakaupo na siya on the boat of Simon. And his audience, nakaupo na rin sila on the lakeshore. Where are Simon and the other fishermen? They're not with the audience. Kung kayong audience dyan, well, they are here on the water. And Jesus is here on the boat. What are they doing in the water? Well, they're washing their nets. Meaning, sige lang ho, sir. Umupo kayo sa bangka, gamitin ninyo. Bahala na kayo, magtatrabaho lang kami. Do what you want. Meaning, wala kaming pakialam sa sasabihin mo sa mga tao. We'll just do what we are going to do. And I imagine how the disciples, they're not yet disciples, how these fishermen carry on with their task. Kunyari, pretending as if they're not listening. But they find themselves drawn to every word coming from the mouth of this rabbi. On the other hand, Jesus naman is talking to the crowd, addressing them on the lakeshore. But you know what? I think the ones he's really talking to are not the crowd, but these fishermen in the water who are working on a Sabbath day. The irony is not over yet, people. Later, when the session is over, the carpenter from Nazareth will give them some tips on how to fish. Saan ka nakakitang ang karpintero magtuturo sa mangingisda kung paano mangisda? Simon and his partners have every reason to feel insulted about this or to take offense at the suggestion. I expect Simon to react and say, "You don't know who you're talking to? I am the professional fisherman of Capernaum." He doesn't talk that way. And very hesitantly he says, "Okay, sir, if you say so." And he cooperates. Kung isda lang si Simon, ibig sabihin, huli na siya. It could only mean that he himself had already been hooked and he was not aware of it. Ganyan siguro yung mga isdang nahuhuli sa dagat, nabingwit na, hindi pa alam. Kasi lumalangoy-langoy pa rin. I imagine Simon asking himself, is this rabbi serious? Is he really going to join us in violating the Sabbath day by going fishing with us? But Jesus is precisely leading them into the deep to invite them to join him in a different kind of fishing. And when they succeed, when they make the unexpected huge catch of fish, now Simon realizes what has happened. He realizes that he is like a fish himself that has already been caught by this fisherman. Alam nyo naman, kahit nahuli mo na yung isda, nako, maglulupasay pa yan. They will wriggle. At kung ikaw namimingwit, kahit nakahuli ka na ng isda, hold on to it because it will jump, It might wriggle back to the water. And this is what Peter precisely was trying to do. He said, "Leave me, Lord, I am a sinful man." As if Jesus did not know. Luke is telling us about two fishing sessions here. The first is what already happened at the lakeshore, where he spoke from the boat and already caught Simon and his companions' attention. Second is what would happen out in the deep, where he would teach them a different kind of fishing. This Lucan story is the inspiration for that song made famous by the Focolare movement. And the title of the song is Servant of Love. It captures so beautifully the switch that would happen in the lives of these fishermen from one form of fishing to another. The song says, "On the night of fruitless fishing, in your boat out on the sea, and with the daylight fast approaching, you take a look at your empty nets. But the voice which keeps on calling will guide you to another sea, and on the shore of everyone's heart, you'll be casting all your nets."
On the night of fruitless fishing, in your boat out on the sea, and when the daylight fast approaching, you take a look at your empty nets. But the voice which keeps on calling will guide you to another sea, and on the shores of every man's kind, you'll be casting all your